Hello everyone. In today's class, we are going to talk about different verse forms. So the focus will be on these verse forms. Okay, so there are different verse forms like sonnet, haiku, villanelle, acrostic, Sestina, Ottava Rima. So all of them will be discussed one by one in detail. So now let's start our discussion from the very first topic, that is the sonnet. So it's the first verse form, and sonnet is a 14 line poem as written here in front of you, and is written in iambic pentameter, and along with that it explores the themes of love, nature, time, and philosophy. So we can say that there are three things to be noted when it comes to sonnet. How many lines do we have? What's the meter? And what is the theme? Then sonnet is divided into two parts. The first one is a Petrarchan sonnet. The second one is Shakespearean sonnet. We do have the third one, that is Spenserian, but let's not go into that for now. Let's focus on Petrarchan and a Shakespearean one, right? So Petrarchan sonnet. Look, we know that a sonnet is of 14 lines, right? Now this sonnet, a Petrarchan sonnet, is divided into 8 lines and 6 lines. So the 8 line is called as octave, and the second one is called as sestet, right? So in Petrarchan sonnet we have an octave, an 8 line a stanza, and a sestet, a 6 line stanza. The rhyming schemes are given in front of you, right? Whereas on the other hand, if we look at Shakespearean stanza, that is also called as English stanza. So we have two things different. The first one is it has 3 quatrains. 3 quatrain means 3 stanzas, each of 4 lines, okay, and a final couplet. So this is the structure that we have for a sonnet, and again the rhyme scheme is different from that of the Petrarchan sonnet. Okay, so I hope it's clear to you now, and it's really easy to keep all these things in mind. The next one is haiku poetry. It's another verse forms. Now let's talk about the definition, that how would you identify it. So it's a Japanese 3-line poem, okay, and with a syllable pattern of 5, 7, and 5. So what do we mean by that? Means the first line will have how many syllables? 5 syllables. Second would have 7 syllables, and the third will have 5 syllables. So overall we have 17 syllables in a haiku poem. Okay, so it's very short and it's epigrammatic, means highly precise and short, right? Aisha. Now the next thing is it often focuses on nature, season, or fleeting moment. So this is what it focuses upon. The next thing is the example: an old silent pond, a frog jumps into the pond, splash, silence again. Now look at this poem. The first line has 5 syllables, second one has 7, the third one has again 5. And this is the perfect example of haiku poetry. So haiku poetry is very popular when it comes to modern poetry, okay? So you need to keep all these things in mind, okay? Now let's move on to the next one, that is acrostic. Okay, it's another verse form. Let's find out what do we have in acrostic. The first thing is a poem in which the first letter of each line spells out a word, phrase, or message when read vertically. Ab, we'll have to understand it from example so as to make things easy. Acrostic often focus on subjects of the word that spell out. Now, ऐसे हमने कहा था कि a poem in which the first letter of each line, look at the first letter. These are the first letters of each line, spells out a word. So if we spell all these words together, so it would become WORD. So it becomes a word, and sometimes it can be a phrase, it can be a message when we read it vertically. Vertically means from top to bottom. So often focus on the subject of that word they spell out. So every word that we have after reading it vertically, so it definitely gives us a kind of message about that particular word. So I hope it's quite clear to you. And acrostic is most famous in children because not only they get interested in poetry, but along with that they also get to know about the word that we have vertically in this poetry, right? Now let's move on to the next one, that is a limerick. Now let's find out what a limerick is. A 5-line humorous poem with a distinct. So simply we can say that a 5-line poem, 5 lines poem is called as a limerick, but the first, second and fifth lines typically have more syllables than third and fourth. So it means that first, second and fifth has more syllables, whereas third and fourth has less syllables as compared to others. Okay, now you can read this example and you can see that first, second and fifth, they have more words and more syllables, whereas they are comparatively shorter. But keep this thing in mind that it is 5-liner, and again the first, second and fifth line is have a lot of syllables, whereas third and fourth do not have that much syllables, right? Let's move on to the next one, that is Villanelle. Now let's find out what Villanelle is. So the first thing is it's a 19-line poem, okay, with 5 tercets followed by a quatrain, right? Quatrain, sorry. So it means that we have 5 tercets. Tercet is a 3-line poem. So we can say that the total number of lines we have from third tercets are 15. With a quatrain, quatrain means a 4-line stanza. So overall we have how many lines? 19. 5 tercets and 1 quatrain, right? 1 quatrain. It has a fixed rhyme scheme ABA for the tercets and ABAA for the quatrain. Now ABA for tercets and ABAA for quatrain, right? And the first and third lines of the opening stanza are alternately repeated at the end of each tercet and the final quatrain. Now the first and third lines of the opening stanza, okay, they are alternatively repeated at the end of each tercet and quatrain. So we can say that the first stanza is highly related to the last plus second last. So last one is a quatrain, 4-line stanza, and second last is that of a tercet. So they have a deeper connection with each other. But I hope you guys are getting what I'm trying to make you understand, that Villanelle is a poem that is of 19 lines divided into 5 tercets and 1 quatrain, right? Now the example is of Dylan Thomas. Do not go gentle into the good night. Now, if you guys are interested in reading Villanelle, go read it by yourself, right? Let's move on to the next one. That is Sestina. Look, from the term, it seems that it's the name of a girl, right? But I don't think so, okay? But let's find out here. So what do we have when it comes to Sestina? A complex 39 lines poem, right? Consisting of 6-line stanza, followed by a 3-line envoy. Now let's find out. So simply we can say that there are total 39 lines, okay, which is divided into 6 sestets and 1 tercet and 1 tercet, right? So this is the overall numbers we have, 36 plus 3, so we have 39 in total. And there is an envoy at the end, and that envoy would definitely be a tercet, right? Now instead of a rhyme scheme, the poem uses a pattern of 6 repeating words that appear at the end of each line in varied order. So simply we can say that it does not focus on the rhyme scheme, rather the poem uses a pattern of 6 repeating words, means 6 words are repeated. How? That appear at the end of each line in varied order. It means that these 6 words are repeated itself in every line of the stanza. In every line of the stanza in different order. So they do not have a kind of rhyme scheme, but there are 6 words in a poem that repeated in every last line of a stanza. Every last line of a stanza, right? Now, for example, we have Elizabeth Bishop's Sestina, that is in front of you. So this is the best example of Sestina. So that is about Sestina. Let's move on to the next one, that is Ottava Rima. Ottava Rima is again another poetic form in which is composed of 8-line stanzas, right? Often used for narrative poetry in England and Italian literature. Each stanza has a consistent meter and rhyme scheme. So simply we can say that Ottava Rima is a poem in which we have stanzas of 8 lines. All the stanzas are of 8 lines, and the main thing is that it has consistent meter and rhyme scheme. Means that the number of lines do not change, rhyme scheme do not change, and meter do not change. So there is this element of consistency. So simply we can say that a poetic form in which there is consistency in number of lines, in meter, and in rhyme scheme, which one is that? That is definitely Ottava Rima, right? Lines per stanza, that is 8. Meter usually written iambic pentameter. Each line has 10 syllables. Now that is another thing. Rhyme scheme is this, it remains the same. And the example is Stone Yawn by Lord Byron. So simply we can say that there are 3 things to be kept in mind. That the stanza, all the stanzas had 8 lines. Second thing is it has a consistent iambic pentameter, and the third thing is the rhyme scheme. Okay, and all these 3 things remain consistent. Okay, they do not change when it comes to Ottava Rima. So there is this element of consistency. So I hope all these things will be clear to you now.